Hello everyone, welcome to a guide of ISIS. Yeah. Now, surprisingly, I do not see this god in mid that often, even though she is very strong. She's not exactly high on the tier list by pro players, but if you are in the mediocre levels like the silver, gold, and bronze, she is a very strong pick. Very strong pick. Very hard to understand, but if you get her mastered, if you like understand her in and out, you will be able to weave through battles, pick off key targets, and survive. So here we're going to show you a simple build. We're going to first realize who we're going to be up against. We're up against Asilla, which means we're going to have the domination of the early game. We're going to be able to push her very heavily in the early game because in the early game, her ability to clear the waves is practically non-existent. For her to be able to clear waves, she has to use her big burst damage, which she would rather be using that on you. But knowing this, we can build a little bit more aggressive if you believe you can outplay your opponent. If you have the skill to outplay it, you're going to want to get the Vampiric Shroud along with the tiny trinket. One, it gives you some power, it gives you some magical lifesteal, and with that you can also get some health pots and some mana pots if you so choose. But I probably would, instead of going with the health pots, I'll probably go with a few mana pots and a few wards to keep yourself safe from ganks. Because most likely you will not go back to base past the 3-minute mark. And around the 3-minute mark is when you can expect some kind of gank, or a little bit beforehand if the jungler is aggressive. So being in communications with your solo laner is key, because he can tell you when they leave, and that's when you probably want to place down your wards to see if they're heading to the back camps or right to you, because you are pretty much on their way. So now that we have our idea that we're going to be aggressive, we have the idea we can pretty much dominate our early game and keep her down. We're going to want to build the tiny, start building this, building up to the Bancroft Talon. So what's going to be our first big item though? Because we're going to leave this alone for a little while, because we're not going to need right away. We should probably pick up our stacking item first, which I find is the best two is between the Warlock Sash and the Book of Thoth. Warlock Sash is really good if you want to be a little bit more on the tanky side, if you are a little bit more, if you're that kind of mage that's in their face more than being in the back line and just dishing out damage, then you're going to want Warlock Sash for that, for your playstyle. Now, if you're that somewhat more like me who wants to stay in the back, just deal heavy amounts of damage, get the kills, and things like that, then you're going to want the Book of Thoth, because that's where it's going to help you out. So we're going to start building on the Book of Thoth. They don't suggest it for ISIS, surprisingly, but that's okay. That's okay, though. We can do this without it. We just go into the powers, and we'll find it right in here. I don't know why they wouldn't, but we would start building into Book of Thoth almost immediately, as fast as you can. And with your ability to wave clear quickly, and hopefully with your ability to outplay your opponent, you'll be able to get a few kills off of your opponent, knowing who they are. Now, if it was someone, if you think you won't be able to get the kill right away, say it was more like someone more on your skill level, someone who can just probably dish out the punishment, and you're having a little bit harder time, but you still want the Book of Thoth, you could skip the tiny construction, the tiny trinket, and go straight for the soul oh gosh, these words, some of these words are just so hard to pronounce, but yeah, the tier 1 of the Book of Thoth. You can start with that. You won't be able to get any of the wards or the consumables, but that's the price you would have to pay for getting that, rushing the Book of Thoth a little bit. And after that, we're still not going to quite finish off the tiny trinket. It's still there. We're still going to use it, so keep that in the back of your mind. Now you have a choice between the Shoes of the Magi's and the Shoes of Focus. What do each of these do? The Shoes of Focus gives you a lot of power, a little bit of 250 in mana, which will help out with your Book of Thoth, and the movement speed. What does Shoes of Focus do? It gives you not as much power, only 30, but it gives you 15% cooldown. So if you're having a little bit of trouble managing your cooldowns with ISIS, this is the boots I would suggest to you. It will help you use your abilities, and because some of your abilities actually allow you to escape, and you're gonna have to use those once in a while to use that to get out of the sticky situations. But since I personally feel a little comfortable with her, that I have the timings down pretty right when I should be using my abilities and when I shouldn't be, I'm gonna go with the Shoes of Magi for that heavy damage. Because when I hit them, I want them dead, or unable to continue the fight. Either one is fine with me, as long as they're out of the picture after I hit them. Okay, now we have the Book of Thoth and the Shoes of the Magi. From here, we can do one of two very different things. We could finish up the Valcraft Talon. We very well could. Or we can go into penetration. If we are feeling that that our teammates are keeping us safe, that we're not really taking a lot of damage, and it's pretty much we're doing just fine. And we don't really need that lifesteal quite yet. They suggest the Obsidian Shard. I tested things out with the Obsidian Shard. I disagree. It does not work with ISIS whatsoever. It's not nearly as good as the Spear of the Magus. Spear of the Magus, so much better on her. Of course, at the very first of your abilities, it's not going to hit as hard, but at the very end, you would do pretty much double the damage, or pretty close to double the damage that the Obsidian Shard would have done for you. So I suggest the Spear of the Magus over the Obsidian Shard, personally. You can do the science yourself and see if the Obsidian Shard works for you. And all I have to say to you is good luck. You're not going to be doing as much damage, because I've done the math, I've done the science, and it does not support it whatsoever. Okay, now with our build so far, we decided to go a little on we went on the massive damage route with very limited survivability. This is the point where we're going to want some survivability. We're going to need some HP, because right now we have literally no items that give us any additional HP or gives us any lifesteal or anything. So we're pretty much kind of naked out there, which is pure damage. We're a glass cannon in a sense. Here we have another choice. Again, we can finish the Bancroft Talon, or we can do something that again furthers our damage, but also allows us to survive a little bit better by giving us some HP. No, I'm not talking about Warlock Sash. At this point in the game, it's too late to get a stacking item, especially one as big as the Warlock Sash. If you're planning on going Warlock Sash, you're going to want to get that really quickly, because of the stat. You have 100 stacks to get. And you're expecting probably around the 15-minute mark to get all 100 of them if you stay in lane. Well, if you're roaming around the 15-minute mark, if you stay in lane, you can probably expect it 13-12 minutes at the soonest. So depending on your playstyle, that's what I say, but I digress. Back to what we were saying. The item that is in question here is an HP item. So we're going to go in health, we're going to scroll down, Gem of Isolation. You might think it's a little weird, but I find it gives us what we like, especially with what we're building into, and all our items have pretty good synergy. This gem will work wonders with your one, which I will explain in a minute. So for right now, we're gonna pick this up. It helps us with our HP problem, where we have not as much HP. It gives us some mana, which will stack very well with the Book of Thoth. If you don't know what that does, you can just read on the screen right there. Pretty much it converts 3% of your mana into magical power. So pretty much getting these, like the boots and the Gem of Isolation here, helps us accelerate our damage. Now, since we decided to go with the Gem of Isolation instead of finishing, now we can finish up the Bancroft Talon. We got a pretty solid build here. not very expensive items. This is pretty much where we're coming down to the very late game, though. You you can always mix and match these items throughout the game, but you gotta remember your character's strength will come the heaviest in the mid game, so you won't have half of these by then. So knowing what to buy and when to buy them is crucial, because there's another big item you can purchase to just really bring out the pain. And they actually suggested too, the Rod of Tahuti. And I agree with this item. It's pretty expensive, but for the gold you do get, it is well worth it. You get some MP5, and the passive on the Rod of Tahuti increase your magical power by 25%. So I mean, it is a very strong item on her. So we would sell the Vampiric Shroud for the Rod of Tahuti. You can choose to get this earlier, which is very viable and very okay. But you gotta remember, you're gonna want to get the stacking item before anything else. You want to finish that as soon as possible. And if it becomes too late, to finish it or start it even, then there's no point in even getting it, because your power output it'll be too late, and by then your opponents will most likely have a means to deal with you and your damage output, which is not what you want to deal with. Now for actives, there's two very different routes in the actives you can go here. You can go a very aggressive route, and you can get the Weakening Curse. You might be thinking this is kind of weird for an ISIS, but it actually will work pretty well. Because since if you hit them with your Weakening Curse, it slows them down. And on top of that, you also have your Gem of Isolation, will also slowing them down. But not just that. If they have any healing whatsoever, like if they have a Chunker or something like that, that healing is reduced. So therefore that means more of your damage is staying and not being healed back up, which is pretty good because you want to kill them at this point in the game. You just want to make sure they're dead. So we're going to pick up Weakening Curse, because we're feeling very aggressive in this game particularly. And then we have another option. Since Scylla is a very heavy burst damage, but then again, she really relies on her snare and various other ways of keeping you in place long enough to hit you with the ult. You could do one of two things. You can get the Purification Beads to get out of those sticky situations quickly, or you can go with the Aegis to block that big incoming damage, surviving it. Either or is but to be honest, I think I would personally go with the beads due to the fact that the cooldown is 90 seconds compared to 120 seconds, which means you would have the beads at your disposal more often than the Aegis. So I mean, that also works well with you can also switch out the Weakening Curse for the Aegis, just in case if you're not feeling so secure. You're like, oh, I have the slow in my kit right now that I put in with the Gem of Isolation is enough for me to use it to keep them in my ultimate, to keep them in range of all my abilities. It will work. It's good enough. I don't really need the Weakening Curse. If you think that, then you can skip the Weakening Curse and go with the Aegis instead for this more survivability. But I will pick the beads for the fact that I want to be a little more aggressive with my abilities and pretty much myself. Now for skills. One, her passive. It's an interesting passive for a mid. It doesn't provide more damage, but the thing is, you get MP5, and you get MP5 for per death that's around her, god death. That is friendly or foe, regardless, and it stacks up to 10. So if you witness it in a radius of 80, so it's kind of like think about it as a Watcher's Gift, but for gods instead. You're not getting gold from the death, but you're getting MP5 and HP5 per stack. stacking up to 10 times. So I mean, and also it's not in these MP5s and HP5s is not just being provided to you, but to the entire team. So if your team is very heavy, like very heavy on the mana, like a Vimana, and you have about 5 stacks, 2, 4, 6, 8. That means you have about 10 MP5 that you're giving to him, with him just being around, which means he can be a little bit more liberal with his abilities. So I mean, there's some synergy there, but it's just nothing that really provides her damage. But that's fine, because all her damage, a big chunk of her damage comes from wind burst or wind gust. My mistake. Pretty much, it doesn't. The numbers here doesn't look too great from a base of 35 damage to 155 damage max, but they're 4 gusts each, so you're doing 35 damage per gust. So that's 35 times 4. Come on, oh, math in my head. Which is around, what was it?
140.
140 just at rank 1. Now, if you did that math with 115 plus the 278 that I'm getting from all my items, then you have to think about their reduction. Then you're thinking, oh my god, that's a really large number right there. But no, you have to think about the resistances, the natural resistances of the natural magic resistance. Because I don't have any items that give me any magical resistance. I already have 30 resistance right now. And that's not a lot. That's hardly nothing at level 20. So, your Wind Gust, it's what's going to apply the pretty much all your items here. Your Spirit of the Magus, your Gem of Isolation, it's going to apply all these abilities. So we really decked out Wind Gust to deal so much damage. But what is the ability that will set you up to get all these skills? Spirit Ball. Spirit Ball is a projectile that you shoot out. From where you're standing to the longest point, it takes about 1.5 seconds. It does not state it here on the how long it takes for it to get to its destination within 10 feet. But we did the science for you, so it takes about 1.5 seconds for it to get to that range. So if you want to snipe someone over the wall, you have to consider the time for the Spirit Ball to get to that location you want. At the longest range, it takes about 1.5 seconds, yes, like I stated. And from the lowest level, from 70 damage up to 230 damage, which is quite a bit of damage. But what it really does, it sets you up for 1 second stun, and that's all you need to set yourself up completely. Because after you've stunned them, you're going to want to use your Dispel Magic. What does your Dispel Magic do? One, it provides a slow in a small AoE area. Not only a slow, but it reduces magical protection. It grants you magical protections by 10 to 30% in max rank. And a magical protection debuff on the enemy from 10 to 30% in max rank as well. Right here, I don't know why it doesn't show the duration of the debuff, but we did the science for you, and we came up with it being 2.5 seconds. So I mean, it's a good duration there. That's enough for you to pretty much deal your burst damage. Because after you dispel magic, you have a choice. After you do that, you can throw down your circle of protection, which is your ultimate. And what that does is pretty much, it's not really big on damage for an ultimate, but it also heals for the circle, for whoever is in the circle. I hope you're getting the gist of what this god's about by now. She's very much about team fighting. She's about being there with her friends. Because whenever she placed down her circle of protection, there's a damage reduction within that circle. Pretty much, it's a lot like the Balloon Ultimate, if you have not seen my guide on that. It's similar to that, except this is a flat damage reduction of all types. It does not give you any protections whatsoever. But the interesting thing about the circle of protection is there will be a slight bar above the very center of the circle, and that's where you can keep track of how much damage and how much healing you can possibly do with this. And this is also why you have to have slows, because the longer that the enemy is in the circle of protection, the more damage you can possibly do. Because the more damage that is taken within the circle fills up the bar. And as you can see here, whenever ISIS or friendlies take some damage, it fills up the bar, and the max charge of the said bar at level 1 is 800 to 4000. And the multipliers from 1.5 to 3.5 and scaling. So I mean, it can get pretty, and not just it increases the damage and the healing. So I mean, there's a lot to do with this ultimate. There's a lot in it. So if you're having trouble keeping up, you can just rewind and try to understand what I'm saying. I know I'm not making a lot of sense. I'm trying my best here, but there is so much in this ultimate to think about. One, you can deal some really heavy damage, and you can do some really heavy healing, but you should not use it as a burst damage, because you're not going to get a lot out of it as just a burst item tool. Pretty much, it can be a good way to secure objectives, like maybe your tank fell behind and he's not very tanky yet you want to do the fire giant. You can place this down on top of the fire giant and help your tank soak up some more damage, and when he starts to get a little low, you can pop it, give him health, deal some good damage to the Titan. You can do this to the Titan, you can do this to the Gold Fury, you can do this to the Fire Giant. All these are pretty much pretty solid options here. I said Titan because it was the first thing that popped in my mind, but I was actually thinking Fire Giant because that's the most likely scenario. It's what's the best way to describe this? It's really strong, like the Ymir Ultimate. People want to get out of the Ymir Ultimate. They're the same way with the Circle of Protections that I've noticed. They try to get out as soon as possible. But the difference between this and the Ymir Ultimate is that it gives your friendlies a lot more beneficial. See, if you put this on top of an objective, their support is going to have to go in there and try to hog the objective, right? So that means they're still going to be inside that circle regardless, if he chooses to try to hog steal it. If not, he will be forced outside of the objective, so you're effectively zoning them with one ability, which gives you the advantage in that regards. So I mean, there's a lot of mind games you can play with around here with just one ability. Just so much you can do with one ability, and there's so much to this ability, it makes her complicated. I mean, the rest of her kit is pretty simple. It's just her ultimate has so much to it, which is what makes her very difficult. But since we have the build, we understand most of these abilities and what they're about and what they do. So let's take a look at how to build her skill-wise. Pretty much your one is going to be your early game push. It's going to clear the waves. It's going to get you kills. It's going to allow you to move around the map pretty quickly. So you're going to want to max it as soon as possible, I suggest. And after that, so let's just say we maxed out our 1. We're going to at least want 1 point into our 2 to set up for the stun. After that, you can do one of two things. You can max out your 2 for the more damage, or you can max out your 3 for the the more magical protection and the magical protection debuff, because that scales pretty well actually, and you can also use it for the slow. So it's your choice whether you want the more damage or you want the more stats. I find either or is pretty okay in the laning stage. So, but for for argument's sake, we're gonna go and just rank out our number 2 fast. And if you see here, just wipe out these minions like it's no one's business. And also, we're gonna want to get as many stacks or level up our ultimate whenever we can. So we're gonna level up our ultimate and our 3 whenever we can at that point if we choose to go down that road. And pretty much now I'm gonna show you how fast you can clear waves. See, just annihilate the waves so very fast. And that's why building about 1 stack item on her is really strong. And since we know we are up against a Scylla, we know she only has 1 sort of escape. And if we can silence her out of it long enough, we can burst her down. And that's why she's very deadly to mages, because mages rely a lot on their abilities to escape and to do damage. So that means she's going to be out of luck for about 2.5 seconds, not able to do really anything to us, and we're just able to do whatever we want to her. Now, the basic combo that I have found is very effective is if you think you can just pretty much beat her with a 2, with your 2, then your 1 for damage. You're going to want to use your 2 to set up the stun. And the farther it goes, the more damage it does. I forgot to mention that as well. Pretty much you're going to want to hit her with a 2, hit her with a 3 so she can't use anything against you, then hit her with your 1, because you're going to be slowing her even more with the Gem of Isolation, and also applying the debuff from your Spirit of the Magi's. And if she still's there and like pretty much alive, you can place down the ultimate, but you're gonna have to be careful with her Sentinel, because you're not gonna want her to get away. Because as soon as you see her, she's using her Sentinel, you're gonna want to pop your ultimate. She's gonna leave that bubble as soon as possible. So now we know what we're up against and how to deal with her. So let's do a mock battle then. You up to it? I did.
Sure. Lord
did.
Dor here to help.
Yep. And of course my lovely assistant, Lord Dor. Yeah, we're just gonna use the minions like in. Yeah, of course you probably would hit. Oh. And that's the power of the dispel magic right there. Pretty much just because she went on top of me, I was able to silence her, and she wasn't able to do anything. I probably overreacted with my ultimate, because I didn't expect my 2 to do that much damage at such a close range, due to the fact that it does more damage the farther it goes. So if you want to snipe someone over the wall, you can. It's just you have to, again, think about in your head the timings it would take to get across the wall into the location you think they're going to be. So it's pretty much a numbers game in that regard. Is there anything you want to add on top of that? Because I didn't quite use the combo. Because there is another combo you can use with ISIS that I know I'm probably forgetting.
Okay. The other combo you would sometimes like to use depending on the scenario. Such as it's a deicide, it's literally one-on-one with one other deity. Let's say it's another mage. Or a warrior. You would generally stun them, pop your ult, immediately go into silence. And then since you have the Gem of ISO, you would pop Weakening Curse and go into your 1. That combo right there will make them stay in your ult, and you pop your ult just to shut them down.
Yeah, because they're going to be a lot more tankier than a
literally
Scylla.
make them sad.
Yes. You probably want to do that combo with a much more tankier. Like maybe you're probably up against a Hercules most likely, because he's very popular still. So, and he's known to be tanky and able to deal damage. So your ultimate will help you survive that, because it will give you the resistances against, instead of a very squishy and very high damage output Scylla. Which is why I probably didn't need to use my ultimate there, because oh my god. Oh my god, buttons are getting hit. I'm making mistakes. Yes, and sometimes you might want to change your hotkeys around a little bit too. So, because I have fat fingers, my finger accidentally hit the T button when I wanted to hit the Alt button. So, changing that around may help you. So, it's a little configuration I need to do on my end. Now you can see that, yeah, with my Wind Gust there, I just got quite a bit of HP back because of the Boundcraft Talon. And I still feel like I can fight her. Pretty much, you can dance with her right now and pretty much like, okay, you know what? Guess what? I'm gonna pretend I don't want to fight you, but in regards, oh, oh, just try to dodge what you can. Oh, jeez. And right there, what happened there is I realized everything I had was on cooldown, and he must have realized that I must have just used my Wind Gust to clear the minion wave, which allows him to go in on me. And since he did that, I had to silence him, use my stun, and since I messed my stun, I am like, okay, so it comes down to all hopes onto my ultimate and seeing if it can burst him down long enough. And if you
And that's
also,
exactly what happened.
yes, and also if you notice as well, I waited to the very last moment till he was almost outside the circle, because I want to get as much benefit as I can out of my ultimate. Because the more damage is done inside that circle, it means more healing for me as well, not just pure burst damage. Because if I did it that way, I would have gotten the very bare minimum of like 110 HP. But I believe I got a little bit more. I cannot recall right off the top of my head, because in fast combat, you're not going to be looking for the healing, but more or less if they're dead or not. But yes, so that's what you can expect with Isis. You also have to remember where her strengths lie. In the semi-early to the very mid-game. She's very strong in the mid-game, where she has some core items and she can dish out some good strong damage. And if you're able to get there pretty solid, then you should be able to shut down a lot of. And if you don't know, oh yes, and also if you don't know, her Wind Gust also gives her a movement speed increase, which if I believe I failed to mention that.
You did a little bit.
Yes, and because of that movement speed there, I was able to quickly and easily get out of the way of Scylla's ultimate without much trouble. I could have tried to use my weakening curse there, but then again, I probably would not have had enough time to use my one, because there is a small animation to using these actives, a very short animation, but when it comes to close combat like that, every millisecond counts. And the button you push to activate your weakening curse could have been the button you push to save your life. So you really have to think of what you're using and when you're using it. And also, if you're going to use your Wind Gust to clear a wave, after clearing the wave, I would immediately back up. Just immediately back up, because that is your main damage source. Now, if you decide to, I want to kind of skip this minion wave and go after the person instead, you can just stun instead and just go after them, and then clear the minion wave. She's very good at dancing, as you can tell. It only took me for a few seconds to get to his back. Only a few seconds because of that movement increase. Because right now with tier 3 boots alone, I'm at 419 movement speed. When I use my Wind Gust, it moves me up to 495. Only 5 points under 500 movement speed. That's a pretty big increase. So you can also use it to get around the map, because at max level it's only a 5-second cooldown. And I don't have any cooldown items. So if you got a cooldown item like the Boots of Focus instead, you'll be doing a little bit less damage, but it'll be about a 3-second cooldown. No, probably 4-second cooldown, more likely. Yes, it's only 15% cooldown reduction, about 4 seconds. For the, yeah, Wind Gust. Oh no, a mistake. 9 seconds, so that means it brings it down to about 6, I believe. 6 or 7 seconds. I don't normally use the Shoes of Focus. I normally use these Boots of Power, or the Boots of Shoes of Magi, because I find it allows me to deal more damage and just allows me to just take control of the battlefield a little bit better with damage. But anyway, I hope you find this entertaining. I hope you find this enlightening and allows you to, think about things about ISIS. Be like, I could try her out and get a little bit better with her. Because you can only get better with ISIS if you practice. Because it comes down to practice. Because one, you can only hit the spirit ball if you actually know where you're aiming. Because you have to predict a little bit where they're going to be before you aim at them. It sounds like Lord Doors are getting a little angry.
Sorry.
I know, it's fine. But anyway, tell me, as an opponent of the silence, how angry is that making you?
Thing is, I know I could kill ISIS, but damn it.
That silence is long enough for you to get just messed up, right? Really hard for you to deal with that silence.
Yeah.
See, that silence is very powerful, and a lot of people look down on it because it doesn't deal damage. But that's the thing about it. It doesn't need to do damage for it to be useful. That protection debuff is enough for me to melt. And I noticed that he got the very expensive pots too, like the defense pots and the power pot. So that means his abilities will be hitting me more hard, and he had more protections. About 50 worth more on each end. So he had about 50 more magical protections, which at this level most gods have about 30, which means he had about 70 magical protections to my 30. Now, since the numbers are there, you can see you can see how that debuff pretty much lowered it down almost the same level as my protections. And my Spirit of the Magi is shredding those protections away. So even though he got those protections, it really didn't matter, because I just immediately took them away in a matter of a few seconds. And of course now, since I hear that sentry, I'm like making sure he's not leaping right to it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm trying to close this out. And like always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Later. Just bye.
Later.